Hey, this is Professor Homa. Welcome to EX11, and I'm going to get started with actually working with the HTML and the CSS right now. And the first thing that you're going to have to do is log into CyberDuck or whatever you're using for your FTP and download the folder that I put into your folder so you could work on it locally. So I'm using the sample one right now. I'm going to double click on it and log in with my password. Hopefully you guys remember your passwords, your last name and 230. And there's an EX11 folder. It's already there. It's not done yet, but a lot of it is done. You'll be pleasantly surprised. So what I'm going to do is copy it to my local folder. Here, upload sample, that's my local folder. So I'm just going to copy it with some of my other assignments. And I'm just going to drag it in there. And there's EX11, it's getting copied, and it might even ask for my password again for the download part. And there it is. And what you're going to have is an index file. You're going to have two images. One is going to be for background, one is going to be that strip of pictures, and you're going to have a CSS file which is already started for you, and it has a lot of explanations on it already, which should help. And you're going to go to brackets and you're going to open folders so you have access to all these files. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to close out of CyberDuck so I don't have it open, and I'm going to go to brackets, which I have open, and I have another folder open right now, so I'm going to go to open folder, and I'm going to choose the one that I just downloaded. So I'm going to go find it, and here's my EX11 folder. I'll hit open, and in your little sidebar area of brackets it should show you your folder. I'm going to make this a little bit larger, bring this in a little bit. And there's my CSS, my index, and your images. And the first thing I'm going to do is open up my index file. You could double click on it, or you could just click on it. And you'll see there's a lot of stuff done for you. I put in the meta tag for you. I put in the shim for you. All your HTML is pretty much finished. Your IDs are there. So you're going to be pretty much working on the CSS for this one. Here's your CSS, and you'll be surprised. There's a lot of stuff here already. You're just going to have to put in the properties for the most part. So I set up some of this for you already, and some of the colors so that you don't have to be writing down these odd numbers and things like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to preview this and just see what I have so far of my HTML and see what it looks like. This is what we have. Okay, so this is what you're starting with. You can see there's not a lot of content. There's some bullet lists that are linked. They're already linked. There's some headers. This is an H1. This is an H2. It's a little smaller. This is an H4. This is an H3, I believe. And there's just other regular paragraph stuff. I don't have your picture in there yet. You're going to have to put in your picture, and you're going to have to make it look nice, and you're going to have to make it look responsive. By the way, regular HTML is already responsive. In case you didn't know, without any formatting, this will fit nicely in a phone. But then again, people don't like to look at web pages that look like this. People like pictures and columns and things like that, because if it was a full-size page, it would look like this. But anyway, regular HTML is responsive to begin with, just so you know. So back to my HTML page. The first thing you want to do is link to your CSS, because maybe there's some CSS properties that are already done, and you don't have to do as much. So I'm going to link to my CSS. All right, and the first thing you're going to do is link to your style sheet. I'm going to start off with, I'll start my tag and do link rel. And when you see rel there, you could just select it, because it'll put quotes, and rel equals style sheet. You're basically relative to the style sheet. And then you're going to do your ref, and select ref, and then in quotes it's even going to look for a style sheet, which is, here's one right here, and here's one right here. So it's showing the ex11.css, so that's your style sheet, so I'll choose that. And then the last thing is type, and it shows text/CSS. So you have everything you need there. Make sure you just close it up. You could put a slash, close it up, or you could just close it up and it should work fine. So that's your link to your style sheet. So I'm going to save this. I'll save my index, and I'll go back here and I'll refresh, and that's what it looks like so far. So obviously there's some things that are already done, because you could see that the font changed. There's some colors that changed. Even down here there's some gray colors and things like that. So there's parts of the CSS that are already done. So we're going to go take a look at the CSS next. I think that's all we need for our HTML to start, is just linking to that. So let's dig into our CSS. You can see some of this is done for you. We have our reset, which resets the margins to 0 and the padding to 0. We have our block rules, which sets the HTML5 elements to block so that they're not read as inline by browsers that don't understand HTML5. And here's an HTML. I'll take away the space here. But what's in here is the background color of gray. So that's already in for you, and you can only see it. You can only see it at the bottom because there's a blue over the container here, but this is the gray at the bottom. So there's already a gray background color, which we're going to put a background image eventually. So it says you'll need a BG image that repeats X, and let's do that right away. So I'm going to go in here and hit return, and if you don't want this here anymore, I'm just going to cut this and put this up here. And there's my background color, but I'm going to put a background image. So I'll just start typing background, and you'll see image will come up, and it'll say you're going to use the one that says URL, and then the URL is basically just going to be you're going to go into your image folder, and the image folder you're going to use this background image.jpg. That's all you're going to use for there, and that's it. So the URL just points to where that background image is, except right now I'm going to leave it like that, and I'll get back to that because I want you to see what the next part does. But also the body, we have the font specified. I'm also for the body going to put a font of 1M on the top and bottom. Remember, if you do 2, it's top and bottom and then right and left. So I'm going to do 1M and 0 to do top and bottom, left and right. And I'm going to go preview that. And I think if we preview it, I don't think the CSS we have to update. Okay, now right now we're not seeing any of the background image right now. So that's going to change when we change our container. So I think we're okay right now. Not seeing a whole lot of difference going on. The container is the main part. That's where the container is where we're going to see some things happen. So we're going to put in a width, and I put a little kind of clue for you. 930 is the total width of the container, except what we're going to do is we're going to subtract the padding, because we're going to put in a padding of 36. So we're going to put in a padding of the padding's here. I'm sorry. We're going to have to. The padding is already here. And what we're going to have to do is take 930 minus 36. But remember, padding is all around. So if you're talking width, it's going to be 36 on each side. So that would be 72. So we have to do 930 minus 72, which would be, for the width, would be 858. And you have to put px in here. Don't forget to do that. Okay, so that's the width of that. And let's just take a look and see what it looks like. And you can see we're seeing, there's our background image. We're seeing our background image right now, sort of. And this container is off to the left, so it's starting to shape up. I'll go back here, and the margin, remember, we want to center it in the page, and what we're going to do is we're going to put a margin top and bottom of 0, and then left and right it's going to be auto. Remember, the auto will make it center within a page because it does auto margin on either side, but you have to have a width. That's why we had to have a width here. And we have the background color. Remember, when you go here, you'll see your colors should be in here already, so you shouldn't have to go look up any new colors. And then we're also going to put a white border on here. But let's see how this works. And now you can see this thing is centering in the page behind that background image. It's centering on a page. Doesn't look very nice yet. So I'm going to go back and do a couple other things. I'm going to put in that border. There's a white pixel border. And what you could do for border, if you're not sure, you could look up. I'll do this sometimes. If I'm not sure, I'll just go and look up the W3 schools just to see how to do the shorthand. And I'll just look up CSS for border. They redid their site. It's a little different. I'll go to CSS. I'll look up border. And I'll scroll down because I like to use the shorthand for border where it shows. And here's how border works. It goes border, then it shows the thickness, the type, and the color. So I'm even going to, I'll copy this. As long as I'm here, I might as well copy it. And I'll go back and I'll put in a value in here, and I don't want to use I don't want to use these values, so I'm going to use a 12 pixel border, and it's going to be white. And I can use white, or I can use, # FFF. I could use either one, or I could just use white because white's a standard color. So let's see what that looks like. And remember, with your CSS, you don't have to save your CSS. There it is. It kind of updates. So that's what we have so far. There's that white border on it, and our background we're going to have to change a little bit, and we're going to put a little drop shadow on there as well. And I think we're also going to need a little margin on the top of this, top and bottom, and we'll probably put that in the body. I think if we go in the body section, wait, we do have padding top and bottom here. Oh, I have a mistake here. That's why there should be a colon here and a semicolon at the end. Some of these cases I tried to leave the colon and the semicolon so it wouldn't wreck the CSS, but you're going to be putting things in between the colon and the semicolon. So that should actually put a little space. There's a little space in the top and bottom. So we're going to throw a drop shadow on here. And again, I'm going to go to another site. I'm going to go to Box Shadow Generator. I think there's a CSS-matic Box Shadow Generator. And there's a couple of these you could go to. I'm going to go to this one right now. And you can kind of test it out a little bit. I kind of want it a little less, like 4. And I don't want a vertical length very much, so I'm going to put that down. Maybe I'll put that to 4. I'll put that at 0 because I want the horizontal centered. But then I'm going to change the blur a little bit. I'll blur it out a little bit more. I'll blur it out to maybe, I don't know, maybe like 15. And I might turn down the opacity. So you could play around a little bit with this. I'll turn it down to maybe like 0.6 or something. I think I had 0.55. That's kind of the look I want. And actually, I think you almost want to move the vertical length down so that it doesn't show on the top. So I'm going to take that down to maybe, I think maybe 4 should be okay with the vertical length. That's why I'm just shifting it down. This one I want it to be even, so I'll leave it at 0. With this one, I want to move it down a little bit so that I don't really want to see the shadow at the top. But that should be all right. The blur radius is about 15. That should be fine. And remember, you can just copy all this code. You can copy it right here, or you can copy it here. And I'm just going to go in here. And this will all be for container. So I'm going to just paste it. And you can tab it so it looks nice. And it may be a little different from the early one that I showed, but let's try it. Let's see what it looks like. And there's my drop shadow. It looks nice. I didn't want much of it at the top, so that's okay. And I think that looks okay, except obviously we're going to have to move this down. We have an issue here with our background image. Right now it's tiling, and the image itself is basically a piece that's kind of, it's basically like this. And then it just repeats in that direction. But then it actually repeats again. So to make it just repeat in one direction, so it's repeating down here on the bottom just as if like they were tiles and they just kept repeating. So what you're going to have to do, we're going to have to go back up here where we have background image, and I'm going to do a background repeat. You have to scroll down for that, and they have background repeat. And if you're not seeing what the options are, they have repeat X. And I'm going to put repeat X so it just repeats in one direction. And I'll take a look at that. And now that's what that should look like. And now you can see it's starting to look more like our original here. We have that little stripe going. Obviously, we got to get the picture in and the fonts and everything, but it's starting to shape up. We have our image so far. It's going to be longer, of course, but that's our background image. And if anything happens with the background image, it uses the background color behind here. That's why we use the gray as our background color, just in case anything would happen with the image. If the link would break, we'd still have that gray behind there. And again, that the container has this blue behind it. So we're going to adjust some of the link colors and some of these things in a little bit, but I think I'm going to stop there for part 1. This is getting started.